welcome to another Fanboy Film Nerd Galaxy Class spoiler review, this time of the movie Glass. This movie, the reviews going into this film weren't as great as I think a lot of people thought, because this film, I'm at a little bit of a loss of words. I just got out of the movie literally like 5 minutes ago, and I'm sitting in the garage warming my car up. It's freezing out here. And I realized as soon as I got in the car, I need to do this review right now, because if I think about it, I'm going to overthink it or not review it at all. And I'm going to explain why. Obviously, this film stars Bruce Willis as David Dunn, Samuel L. Jackson as Elijah Wood, and James McAvoy as Kevin Wendell Crumb. Obviously, each one of these films in this series, Unbreakable being the first, which was 20 years ago. I cannot believe that movie was 20 years ago. And Split just been a couple years ago. And this is the culmination of M. Night Shyamalan's, the director of this film, the culmination of his superhero trilogy. And it's a really unique take on it. I did a review of every single film M. Night Shyamalan has done in my From Best to Worst films by M. Night Shyamalan, and I'll put the links to all those below in the description. So if you want to see my review of Unbreakable and Split, it's in that review series that I did. But I'm gonna do an essay on these three films, because I don't think this is the type of film you can look at it on its own. Glass, if you have not seen the first two, they did a very good job in this film of trying to put it in a context where you can understand these characters. But I gotta tell you, if I had never seen Split or Unbreakable, I wouldn't have known what the fuck was going on in this movie at all, from beginning to end. There are things, having seen both of those films, where I'm still like, what the fuck just happened? It's really hard to even explain this film, because this film really doesn't have a traditional plot from normal films. This is a true third act of two other stories been on top of it. This is a true third act of a movie, and this is a tremendously well put together third act, I think. I know people do not like this film. I love this film. Not by itself, though. I love it just having seen Split and Unbreakable right before I came into this movie theater. I decided to wait right before I came into this theater. I watched Unbreakable, then I watched Split, and then an hour later I was watching this movie. And I wanted it to feel like one film, and I wanted to see if it would actually be pulled off that way, and I think it does. It does feel like it fits with both of those films. There's footage from Unbreakable. I thought they may dismiss it a little bit. I thought this movie would be more about Glass, because Unbreakable is about mainly David Dunn, Bruce Willis's character. Split is obviously James McAvoy's character, having the 23 different characters with the Beast been put in there as the 24th character. I thought this movie would be just about Glass, and it's not. In fact, he doesn't even talk for the first hour of the movie. He's not even in it, and he's not in the movie all that much. And again, if you haven't seen this movie, this is a spoiler review, and having these three characters die in this movie, I was not expecting that. I was not expecting these three characters to die. I was expecting maybe there would be a fourth character that has these abilities, because these stories that M. Night has put together, they're meant to be real world superheroes and villains, and how would they actually truly look in this world we live in, just like really walking amongst us. And I thought he did a very good job of that, especially in Unbreakable. Split never felt like a comic book movie to me at all, which is why I think a lot of people were, including myself, was shocked to see David Dunn at the end of that movie as the twist. The true twist of that movie is that it's in the Unbreakable universe. And I thought this movie also did not feel like a comic book movie. And I know he's not trying to go for that feel, but I felt like Unbreakable, from beginning to end, did feel very much like a very graphic novel type styled comic book film. It felt like a comic book movie, and having just watched it a few hours ago, I still feel that way. Unbreakable is my favorite M. Night Shyamalan film by far. I like Split, but Split does not feel like a comic book movie. Now, if you look at it, any film that is dark like this, and they even mention the word comic book, that's a little bit of a weird thing to say about certain movies, because they use that word a lot in this trilogy, comic book movies, where I think there's a difference between comics and graphic novels. And I mean, graphic novels are an ongoing series in a narrative that has a beginning, a middle, and an end. They're not like Superman. Superman's a comic. Batman's a comic. You don't view things like Watchmen as a comic, or Sin City as a comic, or The Dark Knight Returns. Those are graphic novels. Saga, Why the Last Man, The Punisher. Those are graphic novels. They have legitimate just story that's contained within itself. Now you can make other stories based on those characters, but the main stories are they're graphic novels. And I felt like Unbreakable felt much more like a graphic novel than a comic book, even though Elijah in the films, he's a comic person. He likes comics, and that's a little different. And it's not so much based on story more than it's based on the style of comic book characters, which Elijah is going for the true. This is the true villain. This is the true hero. This is the true villain team up. And I thought M. Night Shyamalan did a very good job of that in Glass. I thought he did a very good job of, if you look at it through the lens of a comic book, characters, not so much graphic novel stories or comic stories, but just characters. The stereotype of what is a superhero, what is a villain, and what do they do. Getting their motivations right for this film, I thought was great. I really felt the weight of Elijah and Kevin and David in this film. Now, David Dunn in this movie, I loved him in Unbreakable, and obviously the movie focuses on him in that. I thought in this film he was kind of an afterthought. I thought Bruce Willis put on a very good performance again, and I thought it was also great. I cannot remember his name. I don't have my show notes this time, like I normally would with my reviews, so I can't remember the guy who played David Dunn's son in the first movie, and Robin Wright Penn, who played David Dunn's wife, Bruce Willis's wife in the film, in Unbreakable. She's not in this film, but I thought it was unbelievably shocking to see 20 years later, actually the kid who played his son in Unbreakable was in this movie and had a major role in this movie, a far major role than Bruce Willis did in this movie. His son actually is, of the two Dunn characters, he is the far more prominent character. And I thought bringing back the girl from Split, who the Beast let go at the end of the movie, and bringing back Elijah's mother, and having those three counterparts be kind of the voices for these three characters while they're locked away in this asylum that they're put into, because the movie is very basic. I mean, the movie is these guys are out and they all end up in an asylum with Elijah, who was the first one to go in after his events in Unbreakable. It says in the film that he was actually put in an institution for his crimes and for all the terrorist acts that he did in Unbreakable. And to see his mother come back in the film, and she's been having to deal with her son feeling like he doesn't belong, and even in an institution, and he goes to not speaking at all about anything, for her to realize he's still at it, trying to figure out who he is in the world, and not by knowing people and being able to speak to shrinks and medication and all that. He wants to know his place in the world, still based in the world of comic books and comic book characters. And I thought that was good. I thought that worked. My thing with Kevin in this film is the same problem I had with him in Split. He has 23 different characters or different personalities, but you don't see a lot of them. You see the major ones. You see the dominant ones. You see the ones that are more interesting. I wanted to see a few more of the other characters or the personalities that he has, and that was one of my biggest problems with Split, was that you only see maybe 6 of them, and in this one it's the same ones, and that was a little bit disappointing. We did get to see more of the Beast, but he didn't seem as awe-inspiring or shocking to me in this film in Glass. I thought the Beast was much more of a toned-down version than he was in Split. Now granted, Split is a rated R film, This is PG-13, so of course I knew they were gonna have to make him a little bit more watered down. The beast I'm talking about, but physically he wasn't as imposing as he was in Split, if I'm saying that right. In Split, he seemed taller, he seemed more menacing. In this film, it looked like they just it's like, let's bulk up James McAvoy a little bit more this time. Let's just bulk him up, and it is mainly just him. Now, believability. The Beast was much more believable in Glass because he's not, there's only so much you can do physically to change yourself. I don't give a damn how much you mentally you think you're somebody else. You can only physically change yourself so much. And maybe that's the reason why they did that, because physically it would have, because that is one of the things you cannot buy, is that somebody can physically make themselves grow taller through an experience of a personality disorder, of saying, like, I'm not this person so much where I'm physically changing myself. That was a stretch in Split, but it worked in Split right up to the point where you realize it's in the universe of Unbreakable, and then you're like, oh, that doesn't seem all that realistic. But then again, David Dunn can bump into people and see people's if they've done something wrong, and literally he can see what they see. Or the most realistic character in this trilogy is Glass, because he's a mastermind. He really doesn't have any superpowers. He's just extremely smart, and he's an intellectual, and he sees things in people that a lot of other people don't see, which is almost the exact same ability David Dunn has, except David has to touch people. Elijah is a trickster. He's like Loki. He wants to see what can he get away with. How far can I push this? But I also love the fact that he's not trying to contain it. He wants the world to see that people like him exist, that people like David exist, and people like Kevin exist. And I think M. Night Shyamalan in Glass did a very good job of that, because he could have gone crazy and done a lot of crazy stuff in his film, but most of this film is isolated in the institution. How they get out of the institution I thought was very clever. I thought the fights between the Beast and David was you could have easily have taken that fight and done something completely insane, like just gone completely off the rails with it. It's all contained. The whole film is contained, and I like that. I saw a lot of people walk out of this movie like that they were either bored or like I'm not into this movie at all. The film, there was not a lot of people to see this film in this theater. I was at the theater here with the biggest auditorium that I always go to, with my little critic seat down there that I love. Very quiet in the theater. It wasn't a very big crowd for this movie, and that's disappointing for M. Night Shyamalan, because he's been on a roll. Is this movie better than his last couple films, The Visit and what's the other one that he had? Split. And I don't know if this one is better than that, because I'm basing it off a trilogy, and this film is connected to one of his earliest films. Unbreakable was his second film, so it's kind of hard to say that he's kind of fallen off, because it's a continuation of something previous. I give it 2 thumbs up. I actually loved it. I don't think I would have liked it if the other two weren't before it. If this was just a single film, I don't think I would have liked it. I would have been like, what the hell are you doing? There are some things in here, question wise, like for me anyway, I was asking myself questions like, what is going on at the end of this movie? It's like the society that's out to stop these 3 characters from being known to the world, because they believe that they will tilt the world on balance, because there are people out there with abilities and they don't want anybody to know it. It wasn't explained very well, and it was meant to be like a twist, and I think it twisted a little bit too hard, because I was even like, what the fuck is going on with this secret society that's out in the world stopping people from knowing that people have special abilities? And the movie hints that there are a lot of more people out there with special abilities. They're just too afraid to say anything, because they don't know their place in the world, and they don't know anybody else who has these powers, and obviously we're never going to get the answer to that. They're never going to make another movie in this franchise, I don't think. I mean, you killed off your 3 characters, so I don't think they're going to make any more. I don't think that they should. I think the movie wraps itself up well. I just wish I would have known a little bit more about that secret society part of it, because it actually was one of the more interesting things in the movie once they revealed it at the end. And I'm thinking to myself, shit, that would have been fucking cool if you would have just had that be a narrative throughout the entire film. I thought the film, I almost want to say it needed another 20 minutes. I wanted to see more about this secret society, but we're never going to get it. I give the film 2 thumbs up. If you enjoyed Split and Unbreakable, I think you will enjoy this film. I think if you like M. Night Shyamalan, period, you will enjoy this film. The style of it is a nice, good hybrid between Split and Unbreakable. It feels like Unbreakable at some moments, and it feels like Split in some moments. And I just wish there was more Glass in the movie Glass. I love Elijah's Mr. Glass. Elijah is a great character. I was hoping we got more from him. So if I have a letdown in this film, it's that aspect of it, is we didn't get enough Glass in Mr. Glass. But outside of that, I thought the characters all performed very well. I thought Bruce Willis did well with David again. I thought Sam did great, and I thought James did great. It was just a little weird because you go into this movie, it's called Glass, and really the focus is on still James McAvoy's Horde characters. He takes up the majority of the screen time in this movie, so it feels really much more like a Split sequel than an Unbreakable sequel. But it does have some Unbreakable moments in there. I think it would have felt like a true hybrid, like a 50-50 split, had we gotten a little bit more David Dunn in the movie, but we don't. And he really doesn't have much to do other than be a pawn to Glass, which was a little disappointing on that end, because that is a good character. And that's not Bruce Willis's fault. I thought he did well in the movie. I liked that character. I just wish we could have seen more from those characters, since we hadn't seen them in 20 years. We just saw the Horde, a few years ago. It would have been nice to see a little bit more of Glass and Dunn's Overseer characters. So that'll do it for this Fanboy Film Nerd Galaxy Glass. Galaxy Glass. I'm out of my mind. Galaxy Class spoiler review. I'll see you guys on the next one. Take care.